one definite in this world, one absolute. The human body is always adapting. Always. If you repeatedly lift, it adapts. If you repeatedly sit, it adapts. If you repeatedly move with confidence, it adapts. And if you repeatedly move with fear, it adapts to that too. What most people call aging is often, in fact, most of the time, it's adaptation. Adaptation to inactivity. Adaptation to fear. Adaptation to convenience. And adaptation to repetition. And the same principle that can slowly deteriorate the body can also rebuild it. Today on the Personalized Fitness Podcast. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Personalized Fitness Podcast. I'm Garrett Williamson, and as always, we are here to talk about health, fitness, longevity, and pushing back against what I call the lie of age, that ridiculous concept that time passing on a calendar actually causes deterioration. And today we're talking about one of the most important principles in all of human physiology, adaptation. Because your body is constantly becoming what you repeatedly ask it to become. If you ever like to reach out to us, you can contact me personally, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. Of course, that's our website also, personalizedfitness.com. Contact us on the podcast line at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Reach out to us on social media, at our Facebook page, Instagram, even our YouTube channel. All right, the body is always listening. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about the body is they think adaptation only happens when they're training. No. You're always training. Always. Even when you think you aren't. If you sit all day, you are training sitting. If you avoid stairs, you are training stair avoidance. If you stop getting on the floor, you are training your body not to get on the floor. And the body adapts accordingly. One of the biggest examples of this is simply inactivity, or what we stop doing. And inactivity often begins much earlier than people realize. One day we just stop playing. We stop running, jumping, skipping. One of the biggest, we stop moving sideways. We stop crawling, climbing, balancing. And what's fascinating is the body notices. Let me talk about that sideways thing, because I really drove that one home a minute ago. Children move sideways constantly. Sports involve lateral movement constantly. Just playing the simple game of tag, you're moving laterally. You're pushing off, going side to side. And one of the major muscles involved in stabilizing that movement is the gluteus medius. These are what we call the medial glute. It's the muscles that run on the side of the hips. That muscle is incredibly important for pelvic stability. It's important for balance, gait control, fall prevention. But when people stop moving laterally, that muscle weakens. Then balance decreases. Fear increases. Movement ends up decreasing even more. And eventually, people start saying, I guess I'm just getting old. Oh, wow. I hate that one. No. The body adapted to what it repeatedly stopped doing. Fear trains the body too. And this is critical. Fear itself creates adaptation. I've seen this countless times. I mentioned in a recent episode a client who physically would not allow both feet to leave the ground at the same time. Not because he lacked the strength. He more than had enough strength to jump up on a 18, 20-inch plyo box easily. And now it doesn't seem like high for some of you, but this gentleman was not a spring chicken. Again, age doesn't dictate that, but he trained great. He was really, really strong. It's not because he lacked the strength. It's because he developed the fear. And once fear enters movement, the nervous system begins adapting around protection. This creates a cycle. Someone falls, then they become cautious. Then they move less. Then strength decreases. Balance decreases. Confidence decreases. Then the fear becomes even stronger. And eventually, the body physically reflects the fear. So it started all here in the mindset. If you're just joining us, this is the Personalized Fitness Podcast, and we're talking about why your body adapts to what you repeatedly do. We get some of our best ideas from our listeners, so please don't think twice about reaching out to us. Me, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. Personalizedfitness.com is our website. Reach out to us that way. Podcast number 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. And as always, be on the lookout for my upcoming book, The Lie of Age, where we dive much deeper into all these concepts and hope to finally put at bay the ridiculous lie of age. All right, let's look at some conveniences in modern life. Let me be clear. That does not mean convenience is evil. Too many times we do that. I drive a car too. I use elevators too. This is not about rejecting modern life. It's about understanding that modern life dramatically reduces activity unless we deliberately replace it. Because modern society constantly pushes us toward less movement, less labor, less walking, less carrying, less challenge. And the body adapts downward. One of my favorite examples of positive adaptation is stairs. We use stairs in a very deliberate way with clients, not just walking straight up. In our flagship in Mobile, we have a very long set of stairs, and it's one of our most expensive pieces of equipment. But not just walking upstairs, we eventually have clients walk sideways, cross over sideways, change movement patterns. Now, why do we do that? Because we're training strength, because they're walking stairs. We're training, believe it or not, balance, agility, and dexterity. We're training coordination, and we are enhancing confidence. And this is where people typically misunderstand balance. Balance does not start in the feet. In fact, it doesn't start physically. Balance starts in the nervous system. It starts in the brain. Those neural pathways in the cerebellum adapt through repetition. Like a road. A dirt road becomes, the more you run through it, becomes a more smoother road. And in the neural pathways, when you're unbalanced as a toddler, it's a dirt road in the neural pathways, then it becomes a 2-lane paved road, 4-lane highway, an 8-lane super highway. When you're 18, you're running around, you're doing all the things. The more the body practices coordinated movement, the more efficient and confident it becomes. And the better those neural pathways get. And honestly, if I could give someone only one thing physically, I might choose confidence. Because confidence changes everything. Once someone regains confidence, they move more. They explore more. They try more. They become more active because they're not fearing every single step. And that increased activity creates even more positive adaptation. You can train weakness. That's what's happening with us. People think weakness simply appears, but it's actually trained. Inactivity trains inactivity. Weakness trains weakness. Caution trains caution. And over years, those repeated patterns become identity. Keep in mind, folks, nothing happens spontaneously. One of the things that frustrates me most is when people describe deterioration as though it just appeared out of nowhere. But almost nothing in the human body happens spontaneously. Something caused it. Something repeated it. Something reinforced it. The body responds to stimulus, always. One of my favorite examples of positive adaptation involved a gentleman who had become extremely dependent on a walker. And eventually, he began standing up from his couch repeatedly as part of his training. Now, to many people, that sounds incredibly simple, but to him, That represented freedom. And eventually, his wife looked at him one day and said, "You're moving around the house without the walker." He hadn't even realized it himself. That's adaptation. The same principle that creates deterioration can create restoration. That's what gives me so much hope for people, because if the body adapted downward, which is exactly what it does, then it too can adjust upward. Folks, keep in mind, no matter what you're doing, positive or negative, the body is always adapting, always listening, always responding. And what people mistakenly call aging is often the accumulated effect of repeated inactivity, repeated fear, repeated convenience, and repeated limitation. But the beautiful truth is, the same body that adapted to weakness can adapt to strength. The same body that adapted to fear can adapt to confidence. And helping people rebuild that confidence, movement, and capability is just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you next time.